You're welcome to move this up to where you want. That's how's your management? Yeah. Are you done or still going? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I saw that photo. You have tiny baby hairs. I do. That's terrifying. So that's what I'm talking about. Just that wasn't the bathroom.
Good morning, Vikings. This is Brooke. And this is John Vittoria. You know how it feels when you're really thirsty? Fourth period is starting, so you definitely know how it feels to be hungry. Well, you're in luck. This Thursday after fourth period, there will be a revival lunch happening. Only this week, instead of the meeting in the gym, it'll be in room 132 of the English hallway. Come hang out. It's going to be a sweet time. Do you like Super Smash Brothers? Then you should come to Vikings Esports Super Smash Bros. Ultimate Tournament. It's this Friday, February 28th at 3 p.m. in the cafeteria. Don't forget to bring a controller. There will be singles and a 3-person crew battle side event with prizes for each bracket. Again, it's this Friday, February 28th in the cafeteria at 3 p.m. Come to room 234, Mr. Caldwell's room, for pre-registration and more information. We hope to see you there. Vikings, have you ever thought about putting a computer in a computer? No? Well, that's exactly what we will be doing on our Vice President's crusty laptop in Software Freedom Club today at lunch in room 220. Hope to see you nerds there. Marina Girls Water Polo defeated Flint Ridge Prep 6-4 in the CIF Finals. The second time in school history girls water polo has won, the last time being 1998. Senior goalie Emma Marsh had 13 saves and pushes her season record to 411 saves. Goals were as follows: Lily Ensley, 2, Lana Cardros, 2, Rebecca Macias, 1, Maddie Cloves, 1, and 1 field block. The girls will play at state regionals for the first time in school history on Friday, February 28th at 6:40 p.m. at Ocean View High School, and we'd love to have everyone come out and support their history-making run. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Give a stranger a high five today. Have a wonderful day, and fourth period will now begin.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. How are we doing? Bueno. What a surprise. I'm shocked. You should bring it. Just bring a snack.
No, I do. I do. I still get hungry. I need like a deal. It's this plastic stuff. It's like.
Well, that's just because I don't let you. That's how your brain works.
Yeah, and it's like the last of the day.
Last of the day. It's 11 a.m.
I know. I get out early.
Last of the day. Must be nice. All right. So on your desk, you have your name tag. You have the handout you were just given. You should hopefully have your packet with your homework in it. Which not everybody does yet. And a pen or pencil. So your name tag, the handout you're given, your homework packet, your pen or pencil. I am going to come around and check your homework in just a second. But before we get set up, a couple of things. Please do make sure that that name tag is visible to someone who's not you, right? Unless you need help with your own name. But I don't think you do. So like, don't hide it behind someone else's back. So you're doing 2 poems, but just 1 page because they go together. It's still William Blake, so he's still writing 2 poems for you. Alright, so 2 poems, The Lamb and the Tiger, on the same page. That's what you're doing tonight. Same assignment. You're gonna define the words you don't know. You're gonna highlight the sentences. You're gonna paraphrase those sentences. That's how you get full credit. Okay. You're also, just like we did first semester, you're gonna go on Canvas and respond to the survey about today's lesson. For those of you who are not here first semester, the idea is that you are giving constructive feedback for today. So we ask that you be fair and be honest, but don't be cruel, right? Because that doesn't help anybody. So that's what we're looking for. And remember that there is no late credit for your surveys. So these have to be done tonight, sometime before tomorrow at 8 a.m. Okay, so that's because we need to get the information to Mr. Kim and to everybody else, and so it can't be done late. It needs to be done tonight. All right. So how many poems are you reading tonight? 2. How many pages is that on? 1. So if you remember you're doing the next page, you should be pretty set. Questions for me? Yeah. Yeah. The packets are hiding right behind Miss Flores, so maybe she'll help you out and just hand you a. Yeah. Anybody else gonna get theirs? Because they're back there. Anything else for me? All right, this is Mr. Kim. He's going to be leading our class today, so let's make him feel welcome.
All right, good morning, guys. I'll be your guest lecturer or teacher for today, and my name is Mr. Kim once again. It's really easy and simple to remember, but if you guys have any trouble remembering it, it's up here for you guys as a reminder. So if you guys have any questions or need to get my attention for anything, just let me know. And my name is up here for a reminder as well, okay? So today's lesson, we're going over the chimney sweeper poems. So yesterday we were introduced to William Blake, and that's the poet that we're going over today, who wrote the chimney sweeper poems. We learned about what type of person he was, where he lived, how old he lived to. We found out that he had 1 wife, happily married, and he was really into art as well. And he is also a significant romantic poet, and we'll figure out why today. So that's what we learned about yesterday. Today, we're going over the actual poems. And the focus question is, how does Blake use imagery and diction to convey the theme and romantic principles? Write a thesis statement. So those are the 2 things that we're going to be focusing on today. And next time, which is tomorrow, like Ms. Fisher said, for homework, you guys have 2 poems. Once again, by William Blake, that you guys have to paraphrase, annotate, and make simpler. So that's what you guys are doing next time. So before we get started, this handout that is on your guys' desk is a really useful studying tool for the test that you guys have coming up. So the format of this handout, it just has blank spaces for you guys to write whatever is on the slides. The format of this handout, it goes in chronological order. So wherever it starts at the top, that's going to be the next slide we're going to go after. So this handout is a really useful tool. Try to do your best to fill out as much information as possible so that it can help you guys eventually, okay? And the blank spaces are obviously for you guys to write your sentences or whatever the activity tells you guys to do. All right, so with that in mind, let's quickly go over the romantic principles. So these are a couple examples of the romantic principles that we're going over today. The ones in red are the romantic principles that are most prominent in the poems that we're reading. However, the rest of the examples of the romantic principles you could pretty much see examples of throughout. But the ones we're focusing on today are strong emotions and feelings and importance of the imagination. So good. I see a lot of you guys writing right now. If you haven't already, the first thing on your handout at the top has blank spaces. So follow along with the campus. So those are the 2 that we're going over today, but other examples of romantic principles also include interest and comparison in the common man, awe of nature, celebration of the individual. So, once again, these romantic principles are kind of the values and beliefs that these romantic poets had. And we'll go more into that as we go throughout our lesson. So, we're going to go over a little bit of our background knowledge. So, with a show of hands, how many of you guys are familiar or know something about the Industrial Revolution? Industrial Revolution. Awesome. Okay, so a good amount of you guys. Can I get a couple volunteers to kind of share your thoughts on what you know about the Industrial Revolution so far? Just quick thoughts.
It was just like they went to like technology and they were starting to like make a bunch of industries, and they were learning how to like make as much stuff as possible as fast as quickly as possible.
Right, perfect. Your name was
Kavika.
Kavika. All right, thank you, Kavika. Yeah, so exactly. The word in industry is in industrial, right? And what you said was exactly right. It was a time and period of when people try to maximize the production of any items, and they usually did that through factories, and a lot of workers were needed for those factories too. So a lot of action was going on. So yeah, so that's a little bit about the Industrial Revolution. So here's a picture right here about the Industrial Revolution. So as we stated before, there were a lot of factories, and there were a lot of chimney stick stocks up here, causing a lot of pollution to go up. And you can kind of see why, as we reviewed on the previous slide, that romantics really have an awe for nature. So that kind of makes sense when you're living in the Industrial Revolution. You're surrounded by factories like these. So of course you would want to have some kind of nature around you, because you're constantly being in an environment that is contrasting or opposing nature, right? So it kind of makes sense. It goes hand in hand. So when I see this picture right here, it's dirty, polluted, black and white. There's a lot of action and energy going on right here, right? So that's my thought process behind what I see and what kind of words I use to describe this first picture right here. So I've done this one right here. I need you guys to kind of look at these two pictures and answer this question. What are the first words that come to mind when looking at these pictures? So that space is on your handout as well. So quickly jot down some words that you think of when you're looking at these two pictures right here of the chimney sweepers and the poverty resulting in child labor. I'll give you guys a couple seconds. So that's good. Shows me that you guys are almost done. Awesome. Let's bring it together. So, any volunteers? What do you guys see? What kind of words do you guys use to describe these two pictures right here on the right side? The middle and the right side. 10, right?
Yeah. Harsh conditions.
Harsh conditions. What makes you kind of think of harsh conditions? Like, why do you say that?
Because the kids are wearing like ragged clothes and they're all dirty and stuff.
Both of them, right? This individual right here, this group right here, they're dressed in like raggedy clothes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome, thank you, Tanner.
Lily.
Lily, okay.
And I was just gonna say some of them like don't have shoes on.
Yeah, good
It
observation.
looks like gravel or something on the floor, so like hard.
Right.
Yeah.
That's good. Thank you, Lily, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So good observation. There's no shoes. A lot of these children don't have shoes. There's gravel on the floor. I think we could pretty much all agree that these are conditions that we wouldn't really want to be in. But these children were chimney sweepers, and they had a very dangerous job, and this is the type of conditions that they had to live through. So thank you guys for sharing. So that's a little bit about our background knowledge. So now we're gonna actually read it together. Before we go into our focus question and our plan on writing a thesis statement for today, we have to actually go over the poems one by one. So follow along, please. On your annotated poems packet, chimney sweepers. I should see the poems on your desk. We're starting with the first line, when my mother died. All right, so follow along. When my mother died, I was very young. My father sold me while yet my tongue could scarcely cry, weep, 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 weep. So your chimneys I sweep, and in soot I sleep. There's little Tom Dacker, who cried when his head, that curled like a lamb's back, was shaved. So I said, hush, Tom, never mind it, for when your head's bare, you know that soot cannot spoil your white hair. And so he was quiet, and that very night, as Tom was asleeping, he had such a sight, that thousands of sweepers, Dick, Joe, Ned, and Jack, were all of them locked up in coffins of black. And by an angel who had a bright key, and he opened the coffins and set them all free. Then down a green plain, leaping, laughing, they run, and wash in a river and shine in the sun. Then naked and white, all their bags left behind, they rise upon clouds and sport in the wind. And the angel told Tom if he'd been a good boy, he'd have God for his father and never want joy. And so Tom awoke, and we rose in the dark, and got with our bags and our brushes to work. Though the morning was cold, Tom was happy and warm. So if all do their duty, they need not fear harm. So that is the first poem. On the right side is the second poem. So let's follow along, please. Eyes on the second poem, please. So, a little black thing among the snow, crying weep, weep in notes of woe. Where are thy father and mother? Say. They are gone, both gone up to the church to pray. Because I was happy upon the heath, and smiled among the winter snow, they clothed me in the clothes of death, and taught me to sing the notes of woe. And because I am happy and dance and sing, they think they have done me no injury, and are gone to praise God and his priest and king, who make up a heaven of our misery. Awesome. Thank you guys for following along. So that was the first poem. This was the second poem. Now, since we actually read over the poems, what we're gonna do right now is kind of make the text, the poems, as simple as possible so that it can help us with creating our thesis statement and bringing all our ideas together, okay? So what we're gonna do is find a literal meaning. In other words, we're gonna paraphrase what we just read, right? So finding the literal meaning, what is Blake trying to express in these poems? So he's talking about chimney sweepers, he's talking about kids thinking about, having their head shaved. But what are some topics? What are some themes or topics or subjects that he's talking about? Yes, writer, right?
Yeah. One of the main ones was like death.
Yeah.
And the first poem was like how like thousands of sweepers were like locked up in the coffins that
Right.
they were basically working to do that.
Right. Good point. Yeah. Industrial Revolution, a lot of horrible working conditions as we've seen in the pictures before, and thousands of sweepers, right? And the names that were presented, they sound like very normal names, people that you might know that have the same names too. It's kind of trying to express to us that people like you and me during those times went through these conditions, right? So thank you for sharing. Awesome. So we're gonna go on to paraphrasing, right? So I'm gonna go over the first stanza of the first poem first. See, I'm gonna go over my thought process and what I think, and try to simplify it, and then we'll go on from there. So the text says, first stanza, when my mother died, I was very young, and my father sold me while yet my tongue could scarcely cry, weep, 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 weep. So your chimneys I sweep, and in soot I sleep, right? So this is a paraphrase. So I try to make it as simple as possible. It could be 1 or 2 sentences. It says, the speaker of the poem had a difficult time growing up with little support from his parents. The speaker believes his job as a chimney sweeper is not surprising given his rough upbringing. So we know that because clearly it says, my mother died when I was very young. At this point, it's not that he has little support, he has no support from his mom, right? But the next line says, and my father sold me while yet my tongue. So his father sold the child when the child could scarcely cry, weep, 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 right? So the child was so young, and he was at that age when his father sold him, right? So his mother's gone, died when he was young. His father sold him. So we're paraphrasing. What I got from this is that he had very little support from his parents, but because of his conditions and rough upbringing, he's not surprised that he's a chimney sweeper, basically. So that's an example of what you do when you're paraphrasing. So since I've modeled it for you guys and I've shown you what I think and I do when I'm trying to paraphrase a stanza, we're going to try doing this together. So we're actually going to go over the second stanza. So the second stanza of the poem on the left side. Can I have a volunteer to read this text, please? Volunteer to read. Don't be shy.
I got you.
Yeah, thanks.
There's little Tom Dacker who cried when his head that curled like a lamb's back was shaved. So I said, hush, Tom, never mind it. For when your head's bare, you know that the sit cannot spoil your hair.
Right, thank you for sharing. So for homework, you guys were required to annotate these poems, which require you guys to highlight sentences, circle unknown or unfamiliar words, and to paraphrase as well. So you guys have some ideas on your papers. I want to hear some of you guys' thoughts on what you guys got for the literal meaning. Like 1 or 2 sentences, it could be even shorter than that. What do you guys think this stanza means and why? You guys need help? Look back on your phone.
Something like about how like he's saying a story about like a little boy named Tom and how like every time he would get his hair shaved, he would cry and he would be like, oh, just calm down because when your hair is shaved, you can't get like soot and stuff in it.
Right. That's spot on. That's exactly what this is saying. There's Tom, little Tom Dacker, breaking it down. There's Tom Dacker. He cried when his head was shaved. Right. That's literally what it means. But then there's another narrator or speaker that says, "Hey Tom, just relax, you know, like, because you're a chimney sweeper. Having your head shaved is not a big deal because the soot is not going to get in your hair." That's what the second stanza is saying, right? Thank you. So yeah, so that's the paraphrase. Tom was sad when they cut his hair, so the speaker told Tom at least his hair won't be dirty when he's working. So now I've shown you guys what I do and what my thought process is when I'm trying to paraphrase. And we work together to do the paraphrasing. What you guys are doing right now is giving a 1 or 2 sentence paraphrase of each stanza, and then we'll be sharing in groups. But before you guys do that, let me show you guys. So in your name tags, you guys have a number. Inside your name tags, there's a number. So there should be 1 to 7, right? 1 to 7 groups. Can I see my group 1? Raise your hand. Yeah, so group 1 is over there, group 2. Group 2, group 3, group 4. Okay, 5, 6, and 7. Anyone not in the group? Okay. So you guys have a group number, and on this projector is a number next to the stanza, right? So if you guys are group 1, can I get group 1 again? You guys are going to be paraphrasing this stanza right here. Group 2, this one, group 3, this one, group 4, this one, and so on and so forth, right? So quickly look at the stanza that you guys are going to be paraphrasing, because I'm going to flip back to the original slides. Just look at which stanza you guys are paraphrasing. You guys good to go? Alright, so now you guys can talk. You guys have the opportunity to talk and share your guys' thoughts on what the literal meaning is. You guys can share your paraphrase for your annotated poems, But each group is gonna be responsible to share out what your group thought was the literal meaning of your stanza. Any questions? Are you guys unfamiliar or unclear with the directions? Okay, yeah, you guys can talk right now. You guys can talk, share your opinions. So the literal meaning of the stanza. So literal meaning, look for the literal meaning, and each group is responsible for sharing. So if you guys haven't already, designate one person to share to your class the meaning of your stanza. Anybody need more time? More time? All right, 30 more seconds. 30 more seconds. Awesome. All right, let's bring it up together. Bring it up together. All right, so group one. Where's my group one? Okay. All right, so group one. You guys are responsible for this one right here, right? And Sophie was correct. Okay, so can you guys share what you guys did to paraphrase that standard?
It's based on saying that Tom slept and had a dream that all the chimney sweepers of the children died because they were trapped in chimneys.
And I'm sorry, the last one.
And they all died because they were trapped in the chimneys.
The chimneys, right? Yeah, that's one way of looking at it, but you know, there's death in there. You know, there's a lot of sweepers. The names of the sweepers were there. So great job, you nailed that. Okay, group two. Awesome. What'd you guys talk about? How'd you guys paraphrase that? The kids were let out of the coffins by an angel, and the kids went to play in the sun. Right. So that's this stanza right here. So the angel is right there. He had a bright key. Earlier there were coffins of black, and he set them free. And all these kids, were running down the hill, and they were all happy and having a good time. Right. Awesome. Thanks for sharing. So that is group 3, right? Group 3 is next. Awesome.
The boys were naked and washing all off their bodies. They went to the clouds and played with the women. The angel told Tom, he's a good boy, God will look after him.
Yeah. It's pretty self-explanatory, right? It's break it down the literal meaning. Thank you for sharing. Group 5. Is it 5? 4. Sorry. Group 4.
Tom realizes that it was all a dream and he's faith in God that he will be rewarded and one day be done shaking.
Good. All right, perfect. So we paraphrased this whole poem by combining all your guys' paraphrases. And so just a quick rewrap. There were kids in coffins of black, right? Coffins of black. Angels set them free. They were all happy going down hills and stuff. They were clean with all their soot. And remember that picture of the chimney sweepers? They were clean, they didn't have raggedy clothes. But then Tom awoke. He woke up. And then he realized that if he just does his duty, then they don't need to fear anything because, God has their back, essentially. That's what the poem is saying. God has their back. So we paraphrased the first one. Now, which one's the next group? Was it 6? 5? Sorry, I'm getting my numbers wrong. Number 5, group 5. So this is the second poem, right?
Yes.
Gotcha.
I said a little boy was crying while covered in soot in the snow while his parents were at church.
While his parents were at church. Perfect. Straight to the point. Thank you. Group 6. Group 6.
Alright, I just said, the little boy was being happy, like it symbolized the open area, but then made him do what he didn't want to do and teach him.
Says, because I was happy, and he was smiling when he was in that snow covered with soot, they clothed him in clothes of death, and they taught him how to sing sadly, mournfully, right? So there's a contrast. It's weird because he's happy and he's smiling, but at the same time, the next 2 lines say that he is wearing clothes of death, and that they taught him how to sing notes of woe, which is sadness, right? So it's weird. There's contrasting images here, right? Awesome. Thanks for sharing. The last one, last group.
It's kind of saying that since the church thinks he's happy with the work and stuff he does, and they think he's done nothing wrong, they leave him to work and they go pray, and then he says, even though they do this, I'm so miserable, working like that.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. And earlier we were talking about how when you guys were learning about Blake yesterday, right? You guys were recapping on who he is, where he lived, and all that stuff. We learned that Blake believes in God, right? He believes in a higher power. He's very spiritual and religious, but he hates the structure of organized religion, right? So he believes in God and he really adores him. But this stanza right here is very important. The way you phrase it is perfect. Because, yeah, they may be happy and they may dance and sing, right? And they think they haven't done me anything wrong, right? They don't think they've done anything wrong. But they all go to praise God and his priest and his king. And they're responsible of making up a heaven of misery, right? So there's another contrast right there. A heaven of misery, right? So think about those while you guys are reading this, okay? So thank you guys for paraphrasing. All right, so we paraphrased. You read the poems all together. We paraphrased them. We broke it down. We found out what the literal meaning of the poems are. And now the next step. So we kind of get a whole sense of what the poems are. And now we're gonna get into the meat of what we're gonna do today, right? Before we do that, though, we have to quickly recap and review the literary devices, right? What were the 2 literary devices that we said we were gonna focus on? If you guys look on the handout, you guys might have written it down. Imagery, yeah, that's one. Another one. Diction, yeah, diction and imagery. So that's what we're gonna have to learn about recap because we're gonna be using that to make our thesis statement, right? So imagery, first off, imagery is the use of figurative language. Awesome, you guys are writing notes. Figurative language to represent objects, actions, and ideas to appeal to one's physical senses. Senses such as touch, taste, sound, sight, and smell. Right, so imagery is that anything that creates an image, right? Image is in the word imagery, so think about that, right? And these are some examples in the poems that we have of imagery, right? So there's a lamb's back, there's a bright key. These are images. If you guys really think about it, you could really kind of visualize what they're trying to say. Green plane, little black thing, white hair, coffins of black, shine in the sun, winter snow.
Sorry. Balloon for right hand.
Awesome. So these are the words, a couple of examples of when you see imagery. If you guys can, I want to challenge you guys to try to find these images or these examples and try circling them so that you know when you're reading the poems, you can say, hey, those are examples of imagery, right? So if you guys can, try circling these words, try to look for them, try to circle a couple of those, like 2 or 3. Next, we have diction, the word choice or word placement used within the text. Simple. It's the word choice. What kind of words do you use, right? Examples, weep, 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 weep. Very specific. And plus, how they use the apostrophe, there's probably a reason for that, right? That is the word choice. What kind of words you use, what choices you make to get your message across, right? And these are other examples. So while you guys are writing some notes, I'm gonna kind of elaborate more on how these two literary devices are connected. So diction, as we went over earlier, is the word choice. What kind of decisions and choices you make to put into a poem or whatever text you're making, right? And imagery is the use of figurative language to represent objects, actions, and ideas to kind of stimulate the senses so that we could visualize something through art and through poems, right? These two kind of work hand in hand together because what kind of words you choose help create an image of through the work that you're creating, right? Because without words, we have no images. But the choices of the words that we choose help create what kind of vision or image we want to portray to our audience, right? So those two literary devices work hand in hand together. So keep that in the back of your thought while we kind of develop our thesis statements, okay? So quickly, where and how are imagery and diction being used in the poems? Any volunteers? Where and how? So you guys have annotated your poems, we paraphrased them. Imagery is examples of visualizations. Diction is word choice. Can I get like 1 or 2 volunteers of where they see diction and imagery? Yeah, what was your name? Serenity? Gotcha, thank you, Serenity.
He uses imagery when he says that Tom's hair is like a lamb's back to like show how curly his hair was.
Right, perfect. Lamb's back, like you kind of like think of a lamb, and it's like right on the head. Like what? Anyways, but thank you for sharing. One more. I'm sorry.
When he's talking about the coffins of black, he uses the word black because it symbolizes death, and it makes it so just like, because coffin's already death, but then black is like also like soup because they're cleaning the chimney, so
Right.
it's like connected to stuff.
Yeah, boom, 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 right? Like soot, black coffin, it really just punches in the image that, hey, like something serious is going on, death is going on. Perfect, and those stimulate the senses, right? Black is a color that we see, coffin, you could relate to how it smells or something. It stimulates the senses, so it creates an image for you, right? Now, that was the first question. What kind of romantic principles can you see in the poems and how? If you guys need to reference them, you guys can turn over the handout because you guys wrote notes on it, right? So think about what kind of romantic principles you guys saw while reading these poems. Yeah, Katie, right? all those names, right? Coffins of black, and Tom, or the narrator's in a dream too, right? So that's kind of imagination too.
And they talk about like nature too, because they say wash in the river and shine in the sun, like showing after like he's in a dream and there's that's romantic.
Yeah.
Way of thinking,
No, spot on, exactly. Awe of nature, right, was one of the principles we went over. And after the angel set them free, those little kids were just running down the hill having a good time in nature, right? In the hills, and the sun was shining, all that. So spot on, yeah, that's another romantic principle. So there are examples of romantic principles in the poems, and we found out there are examples of imagery and diction being used in both of the poems, right? So now, with that in mind, we're gonna review theme really fast so that we could get on to writing our thesis statements, because without a theme, we can't write a thesis statement. Theme is the underlying message about life that the author is conveying about a particular subject or topic. It's essentially saying, what is Blake talking about, right? And so, my example that I give to you guys about a topic that I think that what Blake is talking about is the Industrial Revolution, right? That seems like a huge thing that he's talking about with the chimney sweepers. You know, without the Industrial Revolution, there would be no chimney sweepers because there wouldn't be any chimneys to sweep because of the conditions that aren't there because the Industrial Revolution did not start yet, right? So I think that's a huge topic that could be talked about, right? That Blake is referring to. Now, what is Blake saying about that? This is the theme that I kind of brought up, that my group thought of when we were talking about this. So this is an example of theme. Combining both the topics of what Blake is talking about and what Blake is saying, we thought that one of the themes that are possible for this poem is that the pursuit of industrialism results in terrible qualities of life for children due to poverty. Blake is trying to convey a message in his poetry which brings awareness of a child's stolen innocence, right? So we have to go back to the definition of theme, right? There's an underlying message about life. We related it to life. That Blake is talking about the Industrial Revolution, right? So all of those components have to be in our theme. Now let's bring it back to the focus question. This is what we're trying to attack and understand and answer throughout this whole unit. But with our poem in particular, we're gonna use imagery and diction and how it conveys theme and a romantic principle. And don't be overwhelmed. You guys have a lot of resources. We've done activities to give you guys, examples of what you guys can plug in. You guys just have to talk about it, right? And we're gonna do that in 1 second. So, to help you guys with writing thesis statements, this is a format that you guys can use. All you guys have to do is just plug in the components that are up there, right? In the Chimney Sweeper poems, William Blake uses, and in that blank space, you think of an image of, or diction word choices, right? You put those examples in that blank to convey a certain type of theme, right? That is the format of how to make a thesis statement for right now. The key components, once again, you need a title, Chimney Sweeper Poems, author, William Blake, literary device, either imagery or diction, because that's what we're working on today, and a theme. We went over that in the previous slide, right? So with that in mind, an example is, in the Chimney Sweeper poems, William Blake uses the recurring image of darkness through images such as, and here's the blank space, that thousands of sweepers, Dick, Joe, Ned, and Jack, in coffins of black, to convey. And then this is our theme right here. The pursuit of industrialism results in terrible living qualities for children in poverty. Blake is trying to convey a message in his poetry which brings awareness of a child's stolen innocence. So these are both in your handouts. If you guys need to refer to this, or you guys need to think about what the format is of the thesis, it's on your handout as well, okay? So now, we've thought about what kind of components make a thesis statement, what kind of romantic principles there are, what kind of literary devices are being used, and we found examples for all of those components. Now you guys are going to be spending time in groups with partners to find examples of imagery or diction that connect to a theme and a romantic principle, right? So to help you guys out, we listed the romantic principles up here for you guys to refer to, but you guys need to think of a theme too. So you guys need to really talk and share your ideas so that you guys can get a better idea of what the theme is, right? So this is gonna take a little bit of time, but I need you guys to talk and share your ideas, okay? So I'll give you guys 5 minutes for right now, and we'll gauge it out. I'll check back with you guys, okay? And if you guys have any questions or need help, I'll also be going around. If you guys are unsure,